just so you know. Okay.
Did it right. Awesome.
Cool. Let's go, Mary.
Okay, so getting started with sumo deadlifts. And let me know if everyone can hear me, all of that stuff. That's me inside the little box there. So we're going to start kind of the ground up, just kind of starting with the setup and then getting into body positioning, then into the actual lift, and then we'll go over some things to do that you can do wrong too. So starting with the setup, you want to obviously have a wider stance for a sumo deadlift. Your stance is going to be outside of hip width apart. How wide depends on the individual, depends on how tall they are and about their mobility. But generally, outside of hip width apart. And on the warm ups, I tend to go a little bit more narrow, like for my first warm up or so, just because I don't want to start out super wide. That could be a little painful. So I start a little bit more narrow for the warm up and then kind of working my way out as the adductors get more warmed up. I like to use like the lines on the bar, the little knurlings, to know where to line my shin up. So usually I just have my shins to where they can touch those outside rings if your bar has rings on it. So when I go forward a little bit, shins are touching it. You also want to be nice and close to the bar. So think about like having your shins right against it and kind of thinking about like feeling the steel almost to where your shins are within like half an inch to an inch of the bar. So you don't want it too far from you, that's for sure. Generally, the wider you're out, the more your feet are going to be angled out a little bit. If you're more of a more narrow stance, even on your sumo, your toes won't be angled out quite as much. So that's something to think about too. So then from there, toes are slightly out, nice wide stance, and obviously nice and close to the bar. You want to also be sure that when you're starting at the top, getting your shoulders down and back, and letting your arms be nice and long. That's important. Just letting them hang long, because when you lower to bring the bar up or to get into the starting position, you want to do so by keeping your
I
arms
actually
long,
don't know it. Where does she go?
pushing your hips back and keeping the arms long. What you don't want to do is like bend over to get the bar, because that's going to put stress on your back and it's going to take your shoulders out of position. It's going to not have your lats engaged. So you want to make sure you're keeping those shoulders
Hey, what's the anti-quad clinic?
letting your arms be nice and long, and then you're pushing your butt back and keeping your chest up until your hands reach the bar. So you're not reaching down for the bar in any way, because you see how that makes my background. Instead, keep it up, push those hips back, and then let your hands meet the bar. And that's where you want to be. As far as like your grip width, you want your grip width to be inside of your knees, obviously. You don't want it to be all the way out here. If you go really wide with it, that's going to hurt your back when you go to do the pull. So you want your grip width to be, I like to say, inside. Like if your bar has like the rougher part, get your hands like right inside of that. And that's a really good spot. So obviously inside your knees, arms long, and you want your grip to be pretty narrow, like pretty much right below your shoulders or just inside of it. That's how you want to set up there. So once you're up tall, arms are long, push back here. As far as where your hips are, the thing you don't want is your hips to be too low, or you don't want them to be too high. You want to find like a happy medium, because if they're too low, and say you're like down like this to where your hips are really low, you're going to end up kind of squatting the weight up, which is what you don't want. Like you don't want to start low in a squat position, but you also don't want to start like too high to where your hips are really high, your knees aren't that bent, and your shoulders end up out over the bar when you do that, because that too is going to make your back round. So you want to make sure you're in a position, and I might even be able to
let's turn it to the side there.
Show you here, because you want your shoulders to be over the bar. That's a big part of it. You don't want them to be in front of it. So when you're in this position, push the hips back, and then my shoulders are right over the bar. But if my hips were really high, my shoulders would be coming forward over the bar, which is what you don't want, because that's going to put a ton of stress on your back. I don't even want to lift it like that. I did once when we were practicing, and I was like, oh, that hurts. So yeah, you want to make sure that your shoulders are staying over the bar, pushing the hips back, arms long, And then from here, you're in a position where, and you can't see it, so I'll turn back around because of the plates there. One thing you want to try to accomplish when you get into the starting position is having your shins as vertical as possible and not having them like you're shooting over at all. So you want to push those hips back and look to keep those shins vertical when you're getting into the starting position. So where they're like perpendicular to the ground. So that's the main thing I would look at with your setup.
One of the things too, guys, if you notice, like Coach Mary, she had her hand placement. So why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because some people won't do switch, some people do straight.
Yeah, and if you have grips, go ahead and wear them. Like, there's no reason you can't. And they will help. So, and that's for a double overhand grip. If you're doing a switched grip, you want to just do whatever comes natural and is more comfortable. Typically, your dominant side will be overhand, like that's what your brain typically wants to do. But also with this grip, you want to make sure that your thumb is like on top of your fingers and like squeezing them together. So if you're doing a double overhand grip, you want the thumb to be like under your fingers and under the bar, actually, to where it's like squeezing the bar. So it would be more like that. But if you're doing a mixed grip, you want your thumb on top of your hands and squeezing them hard. So that's how you would set up there. And good idea if you do a mixed grip to switch sides and not always have the same hand over and under. Typically when I'm going really heavy, I have my dominant side always, or if I'm going for like a top set. But for like warm ups and stuff, I do like to switch the grip just so you're not putting too much stress on one side or on one bicep. So that's something to think about too. Is that right, Linda? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but if you have grips, just go ahead and rock them. The mixed grip is good because it's going to keep the bar from rolling, because as you go really heavy, and if you're not wearing grips, when you do the double overhand grip, the bar is going to want to like roll around. So the mixed grip keeps that from happening. So that's something to look at too. Another thing about the grip that sometimes I see people do is they try to go like really deep with it. Like they think if they hold the bar like higher on their hand and closer to their wrist, they'll get like a deeper grip and more stability. But really all that does is give the bar more room to roll. So you want to like have the bar kind of rest right between where your fingers and your palm meet. Like that's where you want them to meet, and not go like super deep to where you're like all the way down here, because that can put more stress on your wrists. So let the bar rest like right where your fingers and your palm meet on them. That's another thing with the setup there. So and then as far as, starting positions, we kind of went over if your hips are too high or if they're too low. So you want to find that hot, happy medium to where when you start the lift, your hips and your shoulders and the bar are all moving at the same time, to where your hips aren't having to shoot up first. So, for me, that would be arms long, hinging the hips back, getting into that starting position. And then once you're there, really, really thinking about shoving those shoulders back and engaging your lats. So for breathing, a lot of people started to say to do it at the top. I like to take my big breath and brace at the bottom. I know it's different for everyone, but you can, like when you're at the top, before you do that, go and really breathe in and then get down into it. I don't like to do that. I like to get back and then breathe at the bottom. What do you do? Do you know?
I think I breathe at the bottom as well. I'm trying to think. Like once I go into it, I'll be like, okay.
Yeah.
I get into position first. We'll go into that.
Yeah, it makes me a little dizzy to breathe at the top, but some people breathe at the top, so I just feel like I'm having to hold that breath longer.
Yeah.
So,
I'd rather get into that position.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I've heard, a lot of people say it's better for bracing to breathe at the top. So.
I mean, I think we're good.
But I think you should do
right.
what works for you. So, so from here, hinging the hips back, arms long. And then from here, what I do is kind of breathe in and brace my lats at the same time. So what I'm doing is I'm breathing in deep to my stomach and shoving my shoulders back at the same time and squeezing my armpits shut in the back. Now at that point, there's just a ton of tension in my body. Like it's not comfortable. It's not, supposed to feel good. It's not supposed to be comfortable. Like it really feels like you're like trying to push one out and you're just creating like a ton of tension. And you want that tension from your feet to your shoulders, like your entire body be tense like that. So from here, the arms are long, shoving the shoulders back, and then driving the knees out to come up. So there's the first lift. First time I've done a deadlift in a while. So
Yeah, Mary.
So then back down from here. But to get the bar up, really thinking about driving your knees and your feet out. Like we say, imagining that cracks in the ground and like, Linda, like push my feet. Like come over here and like show them. Like imagine you're trying to like push those feet out and slide them out. That's how you're going to get power from your legs. Good job, Linda. So that's how you're going to get the power from your legs, is driving the knees out and driving the feet out. Driving the knees out was probably the most helpful cue that ever clicked for me on sumo deadlifts. Like, and I remember it was in Miami. Eric told me to do it, and I was like, I don't know why it never clicked. You know, sometimes a cue just doesn't click until it does, and then when it does, you're good. Yeah. So really think about driving the knees out, driving the feet out. Imagine that you're trying to like break the seams of your shoes, like you're trying to like get them to split, like you're pushing your feet out that hard that you want to just break those fuckers in half. So that's kind of what you want to do there. Yeah. So and then from there, driving the knees out, everything's engaged, and then come up. Beautiful. Yeah. Thanks, Linda. And then, you know, with the lockout, not like woo, like you don't want to like push your hips forward like way too far. Right. And a lot of times what's going to cause that is if you're squeezing your glutes too much. Don't think about squeezing your glutes too much. Worry more about locking your legs out. Like just worry about, make sure you lock your knee out or they'll give you a red light.
And so Mary, like turn to the side and show them that. So if you look here, just pretend Mary's lifting that bar there. So there she goes. Now, if she was to hyperextend or squeeze her glutes.
Yeah, like my glutes are like, woo, and then I'm like pushing way forward. So and that's a good way to hurt your lower back, like, and get too much arch in it. So you just want to think instead about just driving the knees out, locking the knees out. And you're good at this position to stop here. So you don't want to like come forward like this, because that's going to potentially bother your back.
Yes, we don't want that, do we?
Not at all. So yeah, those are the big things. Another great cue to think about, like when setting up and making sure that you're keeping your chest up, is showing your nipples or the word on your shirt to the wall in front of you. So make sure that you're keeping that chest up. So you notice that my chest is up here. It's not like down towards the ground. You want to make sure you're keeping it up the whole time and those lats engaged. Any questions in there, Linda?
So we've got a question as far as dumbbells, Mary. So what are your cues if you were doing dumbbells instead of a bar?
Like a dumbbell RDL, like a sumo RDL, I guess?
I'm going to assume, so Shannon, you're on here. So are you meaning like a sumo squat, perhaps?
Well, I mean, I don't have a barbell, so everything I do has to be done with the dumbbells instead. So I just wanted to make sure, and I realize it would be kind of a different move, but just to make sure the form is there.
Yeah, so typically when you're doing a sumo squat, it would be more kind of like a sumo goblet squat. So yes, your cues are still the same as far as you're wanting to shove your shoulders down. You want to keep those hips in the same position that Mary has going on there. It may be a little bit more squat dominant, like you're going to see that like up and down like Mary's doing right there, right? But you can see her chest is still forward. She's still got that nice wide stance, Shannon. She's still like thinking about her feet because she wants to drive her feet. It's almost like, you know, when you like get jars and you're like twisting them, that's almost like what you're thinking about with your feet. You're twisting your feet, you're ripping that ground apart. So all of the same things apply here. You can also, Mary, if you want to show them like just going into one goblet. So you can also do a goblet sumo squat, and it's the same. Again, it's the same kind of like premise. Her feet are wide. She's still got her chest facing upright. And
still driving the knees out.
Yep.
Still trying to split the ground in half, definitely. Yep. Like imagining there's a big crack in between your feet and you're just trying to make it wide so you can like fall through it.
Yep.
That's what it's for.
And that's like an awesome question, Shannon, because like, you know, and sometimes you might go into the gym and you can't get on a squat rack or you can't get a barbell or something like that. So it's always good to know those two different kind of like moves. So great question on that.
And can that be done with kettlebell as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, good. Yeah, I have
Yep.
both. So I just want to make sure I know what my options are. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Okay.
Awesome. And some things you want to make sure like not to do that are very important are like shrugging the bar up with your shoulders. And what I mean by that is like when performing the lift, like coming up and like shrugging back your shoulders and like using your shoulders to lift the bar. You also want to be sure that you're not like bending your elbows the whole time. And by that, I mean like being down like this and like pulling the weight up with your elbows at all. You want to keep your arms long and your elbows locked out the whole time so that you're keeping your shoulders and your upper back safe. So arms stay long, lats stay engaged the whole time.
Okay. Eric told Irene to get in between the bar before starting. I took that as getting closer to it and allowing my shoulders to hang a bit more over the bar. Any thoughts on what this could mean? Was it on sumos, Irene? If she can talk, I don't know.
Yeah, you do want to wedge yourself against the bar. That's something to think about. Like, and again, your shins are really, really close to it. But you definitely want to stay in an alignment to where your shoulders aren't shooting out in front of it too much and they're staying back a little bit more.
Shelly wants to know if you are inhaling on the way up.
No, you're not breathing. So at the bottom, you want to breathe in, fill your stomach, really brace your core, breathe in hard, swallow air at the bottom. So I'm going to do that here.
There she goes. Up, 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 up. And now when do you breathe?
On the way down.
On the way
I'll
down.
blow out some air.
So
Yeah.
do you see how like she came up to the top, then as she was coming, once you clear your knees, you're safe, right? It's almost like, okay, we're safe now. And that's when she started releasing that air, Shelly.
Yeah. And even if you're doing multiple reps, like take the time to rebreathe and
Yes.
to re-brace in between reps. Like even if you're keeping a little bit more of it, and I'll show you like some faster. Like
There
it's
it
not
is.
quite as fast, but you're still letting a little air out at the bottom and letting a little more in when you get down there. So just kind of like faster breaths, but don't hold your breath for all the reps.
For 8 reps.
You'll hit the floor. Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing that we see, especially when people are lifting heavier. And Shelly, you lift a shit ton of weight there. The breathing is a big factor. And if you need to take an extra second before you go into the next rep, do it.
Yeah.
Okay, do it.
Yeah, and definitely something else to think about is, we say this a lot, but your hands really are just hooks. Like so often people will ask me about grip strength. Like, how do you hold all that weight? I'm like, my fingers are not holding like 300 plus pounds. Like it's my lats that are holding it because you're shoving those shoulders back and they're engaged and they're holding it. And the hands really are like just hooks. Like my thumbs can do little dances. I can take multiple fingers off of the bar and it would still hold because it's my lats that are engaged and holding that back. So
speaking of lats, Mary, because Irene is specifically asking about taking the slack out of the bar for sumos, and we'll talk about it on conventionals too. Yeah, it's like taking the slack out. You're really, really engaging the lats. But what Mary was saying is her arms are long. So she's thinking her body is like tight, right? And when you do shove those shoulders back, it automatically tightens up the whole body. So yeah, it's the same for conventional or sumo. So again, Mary, if you want to like go from the side, Mary, because I think that's the better angle there to see. So first of all, Mary's going to not take the slack out of the bar.
And
okay?
am I going to lift it or just not take the slack?
How do you feel about lifting it without the slack out?
Prefer not.
You prefer not?
Yeah.
Okay, then so don't. Yeah.
Okay. So this is what it looks like. The slack is still present.
So watch your shoulders. Okay.
Should I take it out now?
Yes.
Okay.
Now watch. Do you see that shift? So again, this is her nose. She's got all the slack in the world. She's loosey goosey. Now, there you go. She just took the slack out of the bar. And what you will hear, you'll get accustomed to hearing it when you're lifting yourself as well. You'll actually hear it. It's like you'll hear the little click on your barbell and you'll be like, there it is.
It's my favorite sound in the world.
Oh my God. There's nothing better. Then you're like, oh, I'm ready. Yeah. So again, just like watch her shoulders here. And this is a sumo. It's no different than your conventional. on
So
slack,
shoulders not on
shoulders
slack.
not on slack, there's a slack. And you see that shift in her shoulders, right? That's her lats engaging. Now her core is tight. She's tight. The body's tight, and she can lift all that weight.
And the fingers are just holding the weight. They're not, or they're just hooks. They're not gripping it like crazy.
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, like Mary said, there's going to be parts that click with you when they click. So don't kind of like, you know, we're giving you a lot of information here, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, right? Work one bit at a time. Like for me, the biggest thing, like at one point, was taking the slack out of the bar. Then I was like, oh shit, now my feet. Now I gotta like push my feet into the ground. So little cues, bit by bit.
And that was my
Yeah,
question, Linda. Can
of
I
course,
ask
go
you a question? Yeah. So
course.
that's my question, because I'm going to be honest with you. Like, it seems like a lot, and it's pretty overwhelming to me.
Yeah.
I've never done deadlifts before joining this program, and so is there like an order of importance of what like I should get down first before I start doing the other? You know what I'm saying? Or is it all equally important? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I think and I'll let Mary speak about the sumo deadlift. I mean, I know for me, the sumo deadlift was getting my feet and my body positioning correct. I wasn't necessarily lifting heavy, right? Because I wanted to get that down first. So really figuring out where my hands had to be, where my feet had to be, and how my feet had to be positioned, and then my chest, like how my body was positioned. Getting that initial kind of like thing for me was important. Mary, what was it for you?
I would say that's the most important, is getting the positioning right. Mine was my hips, and really making it so that when you watch back your videos, you're not seeing your hips shoot up first. Like you want to see your hips and the bar rise at the same time. So positioning would be the first thing. And then after that would be like lat engagement next, like learning how to really engage those lats and shove the shoulders back. And then final from there, probably because it's the easiest, is like driving the knees out and thinking about cracking the ground in half. Because once you have that positioning down and your lats are engaged properly, that the leg part's going to click pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like that's going to take a long time to click.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Yeah, because I have pretty consistent problems with my lower back when I'm doing the movement. I can feel it, you know what I mean? And then so I'm just gonna do really lightweight probably until I can just really get it down and not worry about how heavy I'm lifting, you know what I mean? Because I feel like I want to be competitive and lift a lot, but it's just I just can't do it. I can't.
So our question to you, Kevin, is: are you recording yourself for yourself?
Yeah, I look at it, and I should record more, but I don't have deadlifts actually at this moment in my workout plan. Yeah, at the moment, like every time I try to get going on them, the month switches, and then it's like new exercises. So it's hard for me to get going on them, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing to say if you're going light, Kevin. Like, let's say you're working if you're lifting, or do you lift 4 times a week or 3 times a week?
Three
3 times. So there's nothing to say that on an off day that you can't go. That's what I used to do. I mean, this is my home gym we're in right now. Like I'd come down on an off day and maybe do like a couple of reps just to kind of like get the feel of it. So if you want to practice something like that, you certainly can. You're not overtraining yourself, right? As long as you're not lifting for like lifting. You know what I mean?
I can't lift heavy with those anyways. It's like,
but I mean, go like even lighter, because you're just practicing a movement pattern. The more you practice a movement pattern, the better it becomes, the easier it becomes. So I would bring that weight all the way down. If you're lifting with an Olympic barbell, you've already got 45 pounds there, right? Just put on a couple of 10s. Like seriously, if this is not in your program on your off day, just put it on a couple of 10s and just be like, all right, let me play around with my movement here. Let me play around with my lats and go and do like something like that. And that would be perfectly fine. All right.
yeah, and you can even like put something back between your armpits and make sure that you're keeping it held.
Oranges.
When you're practicing. Oranges might be a little hard. I like to think more of like a pen or something, like just something you can hold back there to make sure you're keeping your lats engaged when you're back there.
She a wild woman. She's got pens shoved under her armpits and everything. Damn.
Yeah. So, and I would look, Kevin, like it sounds like if your back's hurting, it's probably the starting position of your hips somewhere. Either too low or too high. So a position to kind of right in the middle to where they're not shooting up too far fast.
Yeah, definitely.
That was my biggest, 6 months. I think I worked on that. My second meet, I didn't even have it down. I just went and competed with Like, so,
Mary.
yeah, so it takes time, yeah.
So, I mean, you know, a lot of what Mary says applies here for your conventional as well, guys. So we'll go from the front here. So Mary had her feet out wide. Now remember too, when you're doing your sumos, people have different limb lengths, right? If you have long legs, when you see Eric on his sumo, he's all like the way out here. People are like, oh my God, my feet have to be out there. He's 6'4", okay? Don't forget that. When I'm doing a sumo, my feet are around here, and this feels comfortable for me. So now we're going into your conventional. So again, you still got that bar nice and close, right? My hands are still going to come down right about here. So I want to think about it straight from my shoulder down. Not here, because this is going to put strain on your back, right? Definitely not here, because again, that's going to put strain on your back. Because if you look here, that's what happens. Or this is what happens. But when I'm able to kind of like have my arms long and go straight from your shoulders down. You want to have like a slight bend in your knees. So if you can see your knees here, so you don't want to lift like this. That's a no-no for your back as well. So again, I'm nice and close. I've got my arms long. This time, instead of the sumo kind of like with my chest high, my chest is down a little bit, but I'm still kind of like facing forward, right? I'm facing this way. And again, watch my shoulders. That's me taking the slack out, right? And now I'm going to push and then straighten out. The biggest thing you'll see on either one of these deadlifts is the shooting back of the hips that Mary was talking about. So if you see here, I've got my knee bent. I'm going to show you what not to do. Do not do this. Don't do that. It's bad, okay? Basically, your knees are going to be bent for the first couple of inches as you lift, right? Now I start to straighten out, and then I lock out at the top. So again, watch my shoulders, up, and then straighten out. Just like Mary said, don't go like this. That's bad for your back. Nice and strong. The other thing that I would say, when you are putting down the bar, whether it's sumo or conventional, so many times we see people, beautiful lift, up they go, and now they're like, oh, holding on, all the way down. Don't do that. Basically, you're lifting, now you're like squatting, lifting, deadlifting, all the rest of it. Clear your knees. Okay, up here, now I'm going to put it down. I'm safe here. That's what we talk about, letting the bar go. I'm still holding it, but there wasn't any power holding onto that weight because I want to save it for the lift. With your conventional, let's see if we can go from the front. You want to think about pushing your feet into the ground instead of ripping the ground apart. So right here, again, push. That's my cue. I'm thinking push. I'm not pulling. Push.
And what part of your foot would you say you're pushing through?
I'm like fully on.
Full foot. Yeah.
Full foot.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's really it. It's the same, like, I think if you're, same applies with your dumbbells as well, guys. So again, what Mary and I are saying, don't let this happen. Look what happens to my back. You keep here and pull it up, okay? So the biggest common things that I would say is shooting the hips back, straightening your knees, thinking pulling instead of pushing or ripping the ground apart.
Talk about like backgrounding a little bit, because I know that can look different for a lot of people.
Okay.
So like what is backgrounding on it, like as opposed to keeping a neutral spine? Because you keep a nice neutral spine when doing a conventional deadlift.
Trying to do it wrong now.
Yeah. It's hard to do it wrong.
It is. It's like you have to think about it, guys. So, if I had this here and I'm thinking about, and this is what Mary talked about earlier, if you have your shoulders over this bar, it's natural, right? Because I'm trying to keep this bar close to me, my shoulders are over, and is my back rounded on this?
Oh yeah, big time. You're almost upside down. I think.
Yeah, so now I'm like, oh, and now I'm gonna pull it.
No.
That's a bad combination, okay? So again, what I'm doing here is I'm simply bending from the knee, and I'm sticking my butt out a little bit, and I'm gonna push in. Ooh, up we go, okay? So I don't know how else to round my back, Mary.
Yeah, no, it was rounded there, and you're keeping your shoulders
Shoulders
back.
down,
Yeah.
down and back,
To keep
down
it
and
from
back.
rounding,
Think
yeah.
good posture, but not like you've got to stick up your ass.
Yeah, we don't want that.
So hopefully that is. Anybody else got any? Let's see here. What's the most important part to focus on to not let the hops come up for? Oh, the hips come up first. Knees play a big factor in that, I believe. I think if you start like straightening out your legs first, then your hips will come up, right? I mean, they have to.
Yep.
So my knees without the bar, right? So my knees, if I think about straightening my legs, my butt comes up, right? So if my knees are still down, my butt stays down. So your knees, I think, would be the biggest thing that would make you do that.
Yeah, if you're locking
you're
them
shooting
out
your
too
hips
soon,
out.
your
Yeah.
hips are gonna pop up.
Yeah. I think we already answered that one, right?
Yeah, I think we went. Yeah, because it's 12:19.
Okay.
Cool.
Ooh, who has them tomorrow? Jen?
Jen.
Let's go, Jen. Jen's got. You know what? The last time we did the squat one, then Jen went and just like
Hip PRs. Go,
Wait.
Jen.
Jen's going to be like, and I did like 400 pounds.
That was a really helpful seminar.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay. Let's see here.
Something
Someone
about
said
paused
something about
ones.
paused ones. Those are monsters, but I can tell you they elevate your deadlift game a lot. They're frustrating while you're doing them.
They make it so that your hips pretty much can't shoot up too soon. That's what's
Yeah.
good about them, because you're having to get that pause in. So
Okay. Yeah, and with the pause too, like some people get like really bent out of shape. You're like, I can't lift heavy. You're not supposed to
that's
lift
not what
as
they're
heavy.
for.
They're not there
Yeah.
for that, right?
You're not matching your PRs with the
at
pause.
all,
No.
at all. Just like focus, and that's a good one to focus on, like for form as well. All right.
That's what they're doing this month.
I love it. I love it. Jen's excited. She's like, she's on. Awesome, guys. Does anybody else have any questions? We know Kevin's going to be out there practicing his deadlifts all day long. Jen's going to be out there PRing like a crazy woman. Shelly's already out there PRing everything and anything. I'm like, dude, this girl knows no ends. Any other questions for us, or something you want us to go over while we're here? Nope.
My shoulder's better. We're uninjured. I'm doing them again.
God.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, Eric comes back and I'm like, Eric, I hurt Mary when we were doing this.
Yeah. No, we're good.
Kill me. They are what, Kevin? What'd you say?
My questions are they're not deadlift related. They would be other questions. So maybe this is not the forum for it. So you know what I'm saying?
We got a couple of questions. We got a couple of minutes if you want to go.
Let's see.
I want to give other people the opportunity to talk about deadlifts if they.
Does anybody have any questions about deadlifts before we let Kevin talk about something else? Nobody's saying anything, Kevin.
So I sent out an email, I think, to a few different people. I'm having what were those exercises I told you about, Mary, where I'm having severe pain in my toes? I can't remember the name of them now. What was it now? I'm having a hard
I
time.
remember you talking about, was it split squats or something?
Yes, yeah, it was Bulgarian split squats, and this has been going on for a really. Do you think like I have a broken toe? Like, why would I have such severe pain in my toes? Like, just where I can't.
Right. I mean, I'm speaking as somebody who's had broken toes before. I still have issues unless I'm wearing a shoe that gives me like I can't go barefoot usually. I see other people and they're like in the gym, they don't have shoes on. So was there like something that you've done that you think you could have broken your toes?
Man, I mean, over the years of running, maybe just being really hard on my toes, and I've like slipped a couple of times off of curbs, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but it's they're both kind of uncomfortable, but one is just it's severe pain to where I can't put a lot of weight on with the barbell,
Yeah.
Bulgarian split squats, and I can do like the ones with the dumbbells a little bit easier,
Okay.
but it's honestly uncomfortable, and I
Yeah.
feel like I'm doing decent form, but it's just it's frustrating. So
Is it your big toes, Kevin? Is it your
yeah,
big toes?
my big
Yeah.
toes for sure. Those are the ones.
You might have, I mean, it sounds to me that you might have a stress fracture there. So you might want to get it checked out.
What this has been for a long time though. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's okay. Last time I broke my toe was probably about 10 years ago now. That's like, yeah, you'll still feel the discomfort. Like they might be able to say, yeah, it's a current stress fracture. If not, then you might just have to have like, a little bit more stability on your shoes when you do it. I mean, which shoe? So when you're doing your Bulgarian split squat, is it your stationary leg or the leg that's up on the bench?
It's the one that's up on the bench.
Are you going up on your toe?
Yeah, but I can't. My ankle won't flex enough to do like the flat. I see people doing their like doing
Yeah.
their flat. I can't do that.
I would work some
I would work
ankle mobility.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
lacrosse ball foot
Yeah.
mobility one could help with your toes too.
Yeah.
So that's a good one to look at. I had a guy do that for about 3 or 4 months and it helped a
And it
lot.
helped a lot. Yeah.
So I would look at the ankle mobility and buy yourself a lacrosse ball if you
Yeah.
don't have one.
Because you can do
No?
that at home, Kevin.
Yeah.
Like honestly, ankle mobility plays such a big role in so many things. And yeah, you're not going to be like you shouldn't be doing a Bulgarian split squat up on your toe, right?
That's what I'm doing it at. Like, yeah. That's
Yeah,
what
that like you're kind of like putting yourself against the grain there. I would do exactly what Mary said and start incorporating a little bit of ankle mobility work at nighttime while you're watching TV. Don't you shake your head at us. Don't you
Yeah.
make
No,
me
I'm
and
just.
Mary look
It's
for you.
frustrating because I was thinking
Yeah.
about. I was frustrated because I obviously I didn't have these pains when I was in my 20s. You know what I mean? Now that I'm in my mid 40s, I'm like, God, my body's like falling apart.
Yep.
We hear you. We
It's,
hear
it's
you.
ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what's the thing is that you're here now and you're doing things that a lot of men and women in your age wouldn't do.
Mhm.
Whenever I have an ache or a creak or a groan and I'm like, oh my God, being in my 50s suck. And I'm like, dude, what's my alternative?
Yeah.
Right? So you need to give yourself a pat on the back. Go open up the mobility manual and damn well do some of that.
I'm not giving up. I mean, I'm gonna keep going, but yeah, just work through the aches and pains. Mhm.
Aw, yeah, work in some ankle mobility, Kevin.
It's worth it.
And it might be like worth just getting a checkup and just seeing if there is a hairline fracture in there and
I'll
just
let you
see.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, do we have another little message there, Mary?
Go Kevin.
Good old 40s. Wait until you're in your 50s, guys. It gets better and better and better. All right. I think that's it, unless anybody else has any other questions or want me and Coach Mary to demo something wrong because
We're gonna go for PRs next.
Yes,
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 we're
Mary.
doing
No, no. She's all warmed up. She's like, now I'm ready. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Does anybody here, because last time we asked if anybody what people wanted to see, what do you think might be good for you guys next month as far as a workshop? Do you want us to go over rows? Do you want us to go over bench? Mary's talking about
But whatever
benches.
people want.
Is there any votes? Anybody have something that they want to kind of like get some details on? You all are being shy. Bench, Irene. Bench.
My favorite.
That's your favorite? That's my least favorite. So you can train me on bench, Mary.
Fun.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, everyone's saying bench.
Let's do it.
Bench it is. Awesome. All right, guys, we do have a Q&A tomorrow. We're going to just like talk shit about Eric because he's on vacation. But if any of you actually have questions, you can also join for that reason.
Yeah, and please ask us questions. So post us up in the group. So we're ready for them.
All right, guys. We love ya. See ya.
See you later.